Hello, everyone. Today I want to talk about something extremely simple that many people overlook, and it has a powerful connection to hair loss, scalp circulation, and follicle health. If you're drinking coffee every morning, you already have the perfect delivery system. What you add to it can make a real difference. The ingredient I'm talking about is cinnamon. Now, this isn't about flavor. This is about biology. Hair loss is not just about genetics. It's about blood flow, inflammation, insulin resistance, and nutrient delivery to the hair follicles. Hair loss is not random, and it is not simply bad luck written into your DNA. What you are seeing in the mirror is often the final symptom of a much deeper biological breakdown happening silently inside your body. Science is now very clear on this. Hair follicles do not die suddenly. They are slowly starved. Every single hair on your head is connected to a microscopic blood vessel. That vessel delivers oxygen, amino acids, iron, zinc, and glucose to keep the follicle alive. When blood flow weakens, the follicle suffocates, and when a follicle cannot breathe, it cannot grow hair. Multiple studies in dermatology journals show that reduced scalp blood circulation is one of the earliest predictors of chronic hair thinning. Long before hair falls out, circulation drops. Long before bald patches appear, inflammation rises. And long before people blame genetics, insulin quietly disrupts everything. Inflammation is the silent enemy of hair. Low-grade chronic inflammation damages the delicate stem cells inside each follicle. These stem cells are responsible for restarting the hair growth cycle. When inflammation persists, those stem cells become dormant. Hair does not fall out because the follicle is dead. It falls out because the follicle has gone to sleep. Research from the Journal of Investigative Dermatology confirms that inflammatory markers are significantly higher in people experiencing pattern hair loss, even when hormones are normal. This means hair loss can progress even without extreme testosterone or DHT levels. The damage is happening at the level of blood vessels and immune signaling. Now here's where it gets even more shocking. Blood sugar plays a direct role in hair loss. When insulin levels are constantly elevated, blood vessels constrict. This reduces nutrient delivery to peripheral tissues, especially the scalp. The scalp is one of the first places the body sacrifices when resources are low. Clinical studies have found a strong association between insulin resistance and early onset hair thinning in both men and women. Even people who are not diabetic can suffer from insulin spikes that silently shrink blood vessels feeding the hair follicles. This is why hair loss is appearing earlier than ever before in modern populations. High insulin also increases inflammatory cytokines. These chemicals attack follicle cells and shorten the anagen or growth phase of hair. Hair spends less time growing and more time resting. More strands shed, fewer grow back, and stress makes all of this worse. Chronic stress raises cortisol. Cortisol reduces blood flow to the skin. Cortisol increases insulin resistance. Cortisol directly disrupts the hair growth cycle. This is not theory, it is documented physiology. One study showed that people under prolonged psychological stress experienced up to a 30% reduction in active hair follicles within months, not years. Months. The body does not prioritize hair when it senses danger. Hair is not essential for survival. So when inflammation, insulin imbalance, or poor circulation is present, hair becomes expendable. This is why topical treatments alone often fail. You cannot fix internal circulation problems with surface solutions. You cannot override metabolic dysfunction with shampoos. You cannot regrow hair while the follicle environment remains hostile. Think of the follicle like soil. If the soil is dry, inflamed, and deprived of nutrients, nothing will grow. It doesn't matter how good the seed is. The shocking truth is this. Most people losing hair are not deficient in hair products. They are deficient in blood flow, metabolic balance, and anti-inflammatory signaling. Even genetics are not destiny here. Genes load the gun, but circulation and inflammation pull the trigger. Studies comparing identical twins have shown dramatically different hair outcomes based on lifestyle, diet, and metabolic health. Same DNA, different blood flow, different inflammation levels, different hair. This is why addressing circulation and insulin sensitivity can slow or even partially reverse hair thinning in many individuals, not by magic, but by restoring oxygen and nutrients to follicles that are still alive. And here is the most important fact most people never hear. Hair follicles rarely disappear completely. They miniaturize, they shrink, they weaken, but they remain. As long as blood flow can be restored and inflammation reduced, follicles can re-enter the growth phase. This is why early intervention matters so much. Once fibrosis, scar tissue, sets in, regrowth becomes difficult. But before that stage, the process is often reversible. This means hair loss is not just cosmetic. It is a warning sign, a signal that circulation is compromised, a sign that metabolic health is declining, a message from your body that something deeper needs attention. When you address the root causes, poor circulation, chronic inflammation, unstable blood sugar, you are not just helping your hair, you are protecting your heart, your brain, your nerves. Hair loss is often the first visible sign of invisible damage. And the good news is this: the body is incredibly responsive when given the right signals. Improved blood flow and follicles receive oxygen again. Lower inflammation and stem cells awaken, stabilize insulin and nutrient delivery improves. Hair growth is not forced, it is allowed. When the internal environment becomes supportive, the body does what it was designed to do. It repairs, it regenerates, it restores, and hair, surprisingly, is one of the first places this recovery becomes visible. If you know how to address the real cause, what if the solution to slowing hair loss was already sitting in your kitchen, hiding in plain sight, dismissed for years as nothing more than a spice? What if one simple addition to a daily habit could influence blood flow, inflammation, and the hormonal signals that decide whether your hair survives or slowly disappears? Cinnamon is not just a flavor. It is a biologically active compound with measurable effects on human physiology. And when combined with coffee, it becomes something far more powerful than most people realize. Let's start with circulation, because hair lives or dies by blood flow. Cinnamon contains cinnamaldehyde, a compound proven to relax blood vessel walls. When blood vessels relax, circulation improves. When circulation improves, oxygen delivery increases. And when oxygen reaches the scalp consistently, hair follicles receive the signal to stay active. Research published in cardiovascular journals shows that cinnamon significantly enhances peripheral blood flow, especially in small capillaries. These are the same tiny vessels that feed the scalp, the same vessels that weaken with age, the same vessels that shrink under inflammation and stress. Coffee already stimulates circulation by increasing nitric oxide and temporarily raising blood flow. But caffeine alone is not enough. Caffeine is a spark. Cinnamon is the amplifier. Together, they create a sustained circulatory response that reaches tissues most supplements never touch. Now, let's talk about inflammation, the silent destroyer of hair follicles. Chronic inflammation does not announce itself with pain. It works quietly, damaging follicle stem cells one signal at a time. Cinnamon has been shown in multiple studies to suppress inflammatory markers like CRP, TNF-alpha, and interleukin-6. These are the same molecules found at elevated levels in people with progressive hair thinning. Lower these markers, and you protect the follicle environment. Ignore them, and hair loss accelerates. One study demonstrated that regular cinnamon intake reduced systemic inflammation, comparable to some pharmaceutical interventions, without the side effects. This matters because hair follicles are extremely sensitive to immune activity. When inflammation rises, growth shuts down. But here is where cinnamon becomes truly critical: blood sugar. Insulin resistance is one of the most underestimated causes of hair loss. High insulin tightens blood vessels. High insulin increases androgen activity. High insulin shortens the hair growth cycle. Cinnamon directly improves insulin sensitivity, not in theory. In clinical trials, research in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition showed that cinnamon lowered fasting blood glucose and improved insulin response in both diabetics and non-diabetics. This means cinnamon doesn't just help sick individuals, it protects healthy people before damage becomes visible. And here is the shocking part. Insulin resistance doesn't start with diabetes. It starts silently, years earlier. Hair follicles feel it first. That is why hair thinning is now appearing in younger adults. That is why people with normal blood tests still lose hair, because insulin spikes damage microcirculation long before labs catch it. Cinnamon helps flatten those spikes. It slows glucose absorption. It stabilizes insulin release, and in doing so, it protects the tiny blood vessels feeding your scalp. Now combine this with coffee's effect on metabolism. Coffee increases fat oxidation. Coffee improves insulin sensitivity when consumed correctly. Add cinnamon and you create a metabolic environment that favors hair survival instead of hair loss. This is not about regrowing hair overnight. This is about stopping the silent processes that kill follicles slowly. There's another overlooked factor: oxidative stress. Hair follicles are some of the most metabolically active cells in the body. That means they produce more free radicals. Without antioxidants, damage accumulates rapidly. Cinnamon is rich in polyphenols that neutralize oxidative stress at the cellular level. Studies show cinnamon ranks among the highest antioxidant spices on the planet, more than many fruits, more than many supplements. Reduce oxidative stress, and follicle DNA is protected. Protect follicle DNA, and growth signals remain intact. And then there's the hormonal effect. Chronic inflammation and insulin resistance increase DHT sensitivity at the follicle level. Cinnamon indirectly reduces this sensitivity by lowering the metabolic chaos that fuels it. This is why people who improve insulin control often notice reduced shedding before they notice regrowth. The environment becomes less hostile. The damage slows. Coffee with cinnamon becomes more than a drink. It becomes a daily intervention, a signal to the body that circulation matters, that inflammation is no longer tolerated, that metabolic balance is being restored. Consistency is what turns this into biology instead of hope. A quarter teaspoon daily is enough to influence blood chemistry. More is not better. Regular is better. And here's the final truth most people never hear. Hair loss is not caused by one failure. It is caused by thousands of small signals going wrong every day. Cinnamon corrects several of those signals at once. Blood flow improves, inflammation calms, insulin stabilizes, oxidative stress decreases, and when those conditions change, follicles respond. Hair does not need forcing, it needs permission. When the internal environment becomes supportive, growth resumes naturally, not as a miracle, but as biology doing what it was always designed to do. Most people believe hair loss is solved by intensity, more products, higher doses, faster fixes, but biology does not respond to force. It responds to consistency. The human body is not impressed by extremes. It is shaped by repetition. And when it comes to hair, the smallest daily signals determine whether follicles survive or slowly shut down. Hair grows in cycles, not moments. Each follicle operates on a biological clock that spans weeks and months. No supplement, no treatment, no remedy can override that clock overnight. Science is clear on this. Science is the anagen phase, the growth phase of hair, can last anywhere from 2 to 7 years, but it only continues if the internal environment remains stable. One spike in inflammation doesn't kill a follicle, but repeated spikes do. One missed nutrient doesn't stop growth, but chronic deficiency does. This is why consistency matters more than anything else. Research in trichology shows that follicles respond best to steady, moderate improvements in blood flow and nutrient delivery, not aggressive interventions. Hair follicles are sensitive organs. They shut down under stress. They do not respond well to shock. This is why people who constantly change supplements, routines, and protocols often see no results. The follicle never receives a stable signal long enough to re-enter the growth phase. Here is a shocking fact. In clinical studies, low-dose, long-term interventions outperform high-dose, short-term treatments for hair retention, not because the treatment is stronger, but because the signal is consistent. Your follicles are listening every day. They are asking one question repeatedly: is the environment safe enough to grow? When inflammation fluctuates wildly, the answer is no. When blood sugar spikes daily, the answer is no. When sleep is irregular and stress hormones surge, the answer is no. Hair does not grow in chaos. This is why lifestyle compounds matter more than single actions. A quarter teaspoon of cinnamon daily may seem insignificant, but biologically it is a repeated message. Every morning it tells your blood vessels to relax. Every day it tells insulin to stabilize. Every dose lowers inflammatory signaling just enough to matter, and over time those small changes accumulate. There is a principle in physiology called signal summation. Small signals repeated consistently produce stronger biological effects than one large signal applied once. Hair follicles are a perfect example of this principle. This is why people who adopt gentle daily habits often see improvements months later, while others see nothing. The follicle needs time to trust the environment again. Another overlooked truth is nutrient synergy. Hair growth does not depend on one vitamin or one compound. It depends on multiple systems working together. Protein provides structure. Iron delivers oxygen. Zinc supports cell division. Sleep regulates growth hormones. Stress control protects circulation. When these factors improve gradually and consistently, follicles regain function. When they fluctuate, follicles retreat. Studies show that erratic nutrition disrupts the hair cycle more than mild deficiency. Consistency protects growth phases. This is also why oversupplementation often backfires. Excessive doses create oxidative stress. They strain the liver. They disrupt hormonal balance. And stress systems sacrifice hair first. The body does not reward excess. It rewards balance. One of the most shocking findings in hair research is that many follicles labeled dead are actually dormant. They are waiting for better circulation, waiting for lower inflammation, waiting for metabolic stability, but they will not wake up for a single good day. They require weeks of consistent safety signals. This is why people quit too early. They mistake silence for failure. In reality, the follicle is rebuilding internally long before visible hair appears. Blood vessels are repairing, stem cells are reactivating, growth signals are stabilizing. This invisible phase is where most people give up. Another powerful truth is that hair growth reflects overall health more accurately than people realize. Consistent habits that support hair also protect the heart, brain, and nervous system. Improved insulin sensitivity reduces vascular aging. Lower inflammation protects joints and arteries. Better circulation supports cognition and energy. Hair improvement is often the side effect of metabolic repair. This is why consistency matters beyond appearance. It is a marker of internal recovery. One study found that individuals who maintained steady metabolic habits for 6 months experienced measurable increases in hair density, even without targeted hair treatments. Not because they chased hair, but because they stabilized their biology. Hair is honest. It reflects what you do most often, not what you do occasionally. This is the final truth. Hair loss is not reversed by urgency. It is reversed by patience, backed by science. When you commit to small daily actions that improve circulation, reduce inflammation, and stabilize blood sugar, follicles respond in time. Not instantly, not dramatically, but reliably. Consistency turns nutrition into medicine. Consistency turns habits into healing. And when the body finally believes the environment has changed, It allows hair to grow again.